Welcome to Your In Depth, where we walk through and break down our favorite fictional universes. I am Jacob, and I'm joined here by my co-host Evan.
Hello.
So we're going to be covering Rings of Power, episode 8 of season 1. That is going to finish out season 1. As I said, we walk through and break down. So we're going to start off with a summary. I kind of break it up by the groups that we follow, because obviously with the structure of Rings of Power, it's a lot of back and forth between, the Harfoots, and then there's the Elves, and then there's Khazad-dûm and the Dwarves, and there's Numenor. It constantly jumps back and forth. So we group them together, summarize what went on in the episode, and then we get into kind of some observations that we've had or some cool things that we've found regarding it. Evan, you got any comments or anything before we dive in?
Just the big finale here. Kind of a prelude to things to come.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and get into it.
Sounds good. Anyway, I found out that Riverside is what we use, has these little things that you can like flash text on the screen. And since we only do audio, I thought I'd preset a bunch of them to screw with Evan when he's talking, with just a variety of inside jokes. So,
oh gosh.
Anyway, I just flashed one up there. Well, let's get into the summary. So we start off with the Harfoots and the stranger. Nori Brandyfoot, Poppy Proudfellow, Marigold Brandyfoot, and Sadok Burrows search the greenwood for the stranger, but he is first found by three mysterious women, the Dweller, Nomad, and Ascetic, who believe him to be Sauron and attempt to restore his power. The Harfoots try and rescue him, during which Sadok is killed. Regaining fragments of his memory, the stranger uses the Dweller's staff to banish the women to the unseen world, where they realize he is actually an Istar, either one, or wizard. The stranger decides to journey east to Ruin to learn his purpose, and Nori chooses to go with him. Then we've got Eregion, Galadriel, and the Rings. Galadriel arrives in Eregion with the gravely wounded Halbrand, as Celebrimbor fears there is not enough mithril to save the elves. Halbrand recovers and proposes combining mithril with other elements to create small objects capable of influencing the seen and unseen worlds, despite Gil-galad's objections. Growing suspicious, Galadriel uncovers records proving Halbrand's lineage is false and confronts him, at which point he reveals himself as Sauron. After Galadriel refuses his offer to rule beside him and he flees to Mordor, she keeps his identity secret and urges Celebrimbor to forge 3 rings, which are completed before Elrond can stop them. Then we've got Numenor. As King Tar Palantir's health worsens, Chancellor Pharazôn arranges for the Builders Guild to begin planning the king's tomb. Arion is granted time at the king's bedside to design that tomb, during which Tar Palantir awakens and mistakes her for his daughter, Queen Regent Muriel. He leads her to the Palantir and warns her not to linger on its visions. The king dies soon after, before Muriel and Elendil return from Middle-earth. That is our summary. As per usual, we got a little bit of an ad, and then we'll get into it.
Oh boy.
This episode is brought to you by Evan's Cat Bath Wildlife Cleanup. If you have an animal that just looks too dirty, Evan can clean that thing up via one of his many feline-inspired bathing techniques. He just can't keep his tongue off of wild animals. So if you want cleaner wildlife in your area, call today at... That's
Bro. What the fuck? I'm blooping that number For sure.
I would for sure hope you do. It will be bleeped, but that was his full phone number.
I heard files. There's no way he's putting the whole thing.
Yeah, I did.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway.
Oh geez.
So yeah, what stood out to you about this episode? Like, what'd you have to say about it?
I just need to make a note real quick. Apparently I'm running a pet cleaning service that I was unaware of.
They're not pets; they're just wildlife.
Oh God, that's so much worse. There's gonna be such a mess.
Yeah.
Oh Lord. Okay, the episode. Before I get to some like scenes that stood out or anything like that, I do want to say this episode, just like the last one that we did, I do have some divergences between lore and show. That I do look forward to getting into towards the end of the episode. So if anybody's curious about that, those differences, make sure you hang out till the end to hear those. But with that, my first thing is the three, what were they called? Like the three, like women that were following the stranger,
mystics or something like that.
When the stranger banishes them back to like the unseen worlds or realm or whatever, Jacob, stop it. Stop it. My kind of note there is just like how much they looked like the Nazgul from the original trilogy.
Yeah, like when they flash, like before they just disappear, very much so.
It very much reminded me of like in Fellowship of the Ring when Frodo puts the ring on at Weathertop and we can see the Nazgul in like their true form. Very much reminded me of that, which I thought was an interesting choice on the producer's end. And it makes me wonder, are these three actually like wraiths bestowed power from someone or something? Or is that just an effect that happens because the stranger is sending them to the unseen world? You know, or like the spirit realm or whatever you want to call it. I'm kind of curious about that. And slight kind of little bit spoiler, I don't think that answer arrives in season 2 from because I've seen season 2. I if that answer's in there, I missed it.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously can't speak of season 2. I have no idea. But that whole thing with the stranger, how it was kind of like, I don't know, it was just weirdly done, and like there's some different scenes in this where I'm just kind of like, this is kind of cringe. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
So later on were more of them, but this one, it was kind of like, I don't know, it was like ooh whatever, you know, because it's like
ooga booga.
Yeah,
We're
ooga
so
booga,
scary.
he's Sauron, and you know,
yeah.
And then they were just like, well, because they approach and they're just like, Lord Sauron, whatever. So when you first watched this, I have a question for you. When you first watched this, what was your reaction to that? Were you kind of like, is that really the direction they're taking, or did you like believe it at all?
I didn't buy it. Like when I first watched the episode, I didn't buy this. Oh, he's actually Sauron. For a couple different reasons, right? Number one is the stranger's arrival, right? Falling down from the heavens and crashing into Middle Earth. That sort of arrival, especially having some of the background knowledge of the lore, like just didn't fit how Sauron would be there. And so like that right away just was having me say, no, that's not actually him. And number two was just him being with the Harfoots this whole time. Right? That just to me screamed Gandalf. Is what it did for me. And I mean, even at the end of this episode, we get that line from the stranger kind of cementing who I think a lot of people thought he was, with the like, whenever in doubt, follow your nose. Kind of
yeah.
hinting at the line from Gandalf in Fellowship of the Ring. I will say though, part of me was like, when I first saw the episode, was like, is that Sauron? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but if that is, maybe he goes with these three mystics and they remind him of him being the bad guy, type of thing, and maybe this little journey with the Harfoots was just like a misdirect or something, but even that kind of thought wasn't really present for very long.
Yeah, I feel like my initial reaction was kind of like they said that, and I'm like, oh, no, wait.
Yeah.
Like kind of same where it's like that, like confusion. Because like, obviously you don't know who he is, but it's just kind of like, that doesn't really make sense.
Right.
So I don't know. I did think that the mystics, or is that what we want to call them? Isn't that what they call them?
I think they're referred to as the mystics. I'm pretty sure I've seen that before. That sounds right.
Yeah. Well, the one's accent, and maybe it's an actual accent. I'm just being a
just being ignorant or something. I don't know.
Midwest whitey, but it sounded so janky to me. Like, and I'm just kind of like, that just sounds goofy. And I'm sorry if it's an actual accent, but it just seemed forced to me.
Well, it might be an actual accent, but the actress might have just been trying to like, not improv it, but like
maybe
trying to put on the accent, but not actually like a local from that region.
Maybe.
It could be
I don't know.
possible.
It just sounded goofy to me, and it took me out of it a little bit. But again, maybe I'm not right there. I don't know.
I couldn't say for sure.
But I will say that the absolute least favorite character in all of this is that one with the like super light blue eyes and the short blonde hair. God, she looks stupid. And I hate it. And the way that she I hate that character.
I was
almost borderline cringy to me.
I'll be honest. For like the first probably
you were turned on by her.
2 or 3 scenes that she's in, I wasn't sure if that was a guy or a chick.
I wasn't sure. Tell that it was I could tell there, but
I could not. The first like 2 or 3 times we see her on screen, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, sticking with the Harfoots and the stranger, I was a little upset that they did Sadok dirty like that.
Honestly, I remember. So I was watching this today, and he was sitting there, and I'm like, Gandalf there saves him, doesn't he? And then it passed on. And I'm like, oh, I misremembered that. What the heck? Yeah. And I was like super disappointed because like for some reason I had it in my mind. I don't remember him dying.
I didn't remember him dying either. The first probably 2 times I watched through the season, because I watched.
Well, that's because he's black and you don't pay attention to characters like that.
Hey now. Hey, listen, okay? Just because they're misrepresenting the Harfoots in this situation does not mean anything, okay? Tolkien wrote Lord of the Rings for majority of Middle Earth that we see them to be white. Straight up, he did. You get, like, Asian populace from further east as some of the bad guys for some reason. And you get African American from the south, from Harad. Again, the bad guys for some reason. That's just the way the dude wrote his stuff. So if there's any racism going on here, it's from Tolkien, not me.
I don't know why it's funny to accuse you of random stuff. Licking wildlife, starting house fires, being a belligerent racist. It's just funny to me to
Hey, listen, only one of those 3 is false.
There's a game for the audience. Which one is it?
2 truths and a lie.
Yeah. Spin, they're all true.
But no, yeah, they just, they did Sadok dirty. I
Yeah, they
didn't
did.
I didn't realize he died the first 2 times I watched the show, because it doesn't really focus on him and like his final moment like other medias do, where like show them sitting there like last breath, eyes closed. Kind of
Right.
like a
It's just
close up
him
on the
chilling.
character. It was just
He's
like a
just kind
wide
of
shot of the
chilling.
group of them.
Yeah, it was a cool end. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was a nice end to him because he's just chilling, friggin' Arthur Morganing it on the
Yeah,
sunrise and then or sunset or something. But then
I think it
he's
was
surrounded
sunrise,
by people who
but
liked him,
yeah.
loved him.
But they just did it in a way that I missed it the first couple times, especially when season 2 came out, and I was like, "Where's Sadok at?"
Yeah,
And then I had to go back and watch. And I was like, "Oh, oh gosh, no."
yeah. I don't remember that at all.
Yeah.
But um, because we're still talking about the Harfoots and stuff, the one thing that really bugged me, and I said some of the things in this episode were cringy to me.
Mm.
The one was so dumb when he picks up and he pushes him away or whatever, and he fights back. He's like, "No, and like he's not Sauron," and they're just like,
Mm-hmm.
"He isn't Sauron. He is the other." And I'm like, "Oh, that's dope." And then he's like, "I am good," and he did it. I'm like, that. I'm just like, that's so lame. Like that line was just
Yeah.
cringy to me.
Well, and I'll get into it more towards the end of the episode, like I said, with some of the changes from lore to show. But one change here is he's not Sauron, he's the other. There's not one other to oppose Sauron.
Hmm.
Like the whole thing with like Gandalf and Saruman and Radagast and the 2 blue wizards is they're all 5 sent down to help, the elves, men, and dwarves, the hobbits fight back against Sauron. There's not like one person sent back
Mm-hmm.
or sent down from above to like, he's going to be the great hero that opposes the evil darkness. That's for those lore enthusiasts. There's probably some discontent there.
Yeah. That I don't know. Did they do anything more with? Well, they probably not with that because these characters
Well,
are yeeted.
and again, I'll get into kind of more of the specifics towards the end of the episode, but I will say one thing. Per the lore, Gandalf shouldn't even be here yet.
Yeah, I remember that being a
Yeah,
being a-
I've mentioned that before, but yeah. But the last thing with the Harfoots, at least for me,
I don't have any
is
more, so that's cool.
yeah, just our kind of conclusion of the Harfoot story for season 1. With Nori and the stranger setting out on their own, heading east, heading to Rune. I was pretty excited when I first watched the show about that, because at that point I really hadn't gotten too far into kind of like the lore of Lord of the Rings, so I didn't really know that much about Rune. Didn't really know what like the terrain would even be like, or any sort of local populace or anything like that. So that was one thing that I was excited for, was just seeing a new part of Middle Earth that I hadn't really explored much of before.
Mm-hmm.
Which is nice to see. Because like the most you get of Rune prior to this is, at least from TV shows or movies, is some of the evil men that come to fight for Sauron in the 2 Towers in Return of the King. That's the most you get from like Rune or Harad. But there's like whole kingdoms down there, and stories that can be explored, and civilizations and all that kind of stuff. So it's just kind of cool to get to start to see more of that. Yeah.
I think next was it is what I have written here was Galadriel. And there was some interesting. So like the first thing I wrote was that It was when Galadriel was talking to Celebrimbor, right? Celebrimbor's in this. That's that
Yes,
guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Celebrimbor is the smith, forging the
Yeah,
rings.
that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
There was something that was anyway. He says when they're making these things that it's not of the flesh, but power over flesh.
Mm-hmm.
This piques Galadriel's interest because she's like, where did you hear that? Like,
Yeah.
was Halbrand here? Now, had he said it earlier in the show? Because
I
it
can't
seems
remember
like
the
maybe I should have
specific.
picked up on.
I can't remember the specific scene, but I'm like 95% sure that
He said that.
he says that. Part of me wants to say it's in one of the scenes with Halbrand and Adar. I could be wrong on that, but part of me thinks it's one of those scenes with those two.
Well, that one I just didn't recall hearing it before.
Yeah.
But it was pretty clear that should have been some sort of callback.
Yeah.
Because she picked up on it. But
well, and even with that scene, when Celebrimbor says that, I thought it was really interesting because Galadriel asks him, like, where did you hear that? Like, where did that come from? And Celebrimbor thinks that it's his own thought. He's like, maybe I heard one of my smiths say it, or maybe I said it.
Yeah, he didn't
I think
pinpoint it to where exactly he heard it.
Yeah, but with the revelation in this episode that Halbrand is Sauron, that just shows the manipulation beginning. The start of the manipulation and the fall of Celebrimbor.
Oh, yeah.
Which I thought was a cool little detail to add in there.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of him corrupting and kind of the way that he does it, manipulating, it was really interesting to me to see how he was toying with Galadriel's thoughts.
Yeah.
So much so that she had these memories and he's twisting them to fit what he's trying to convince her of,
Yeah,
Or it's like the conversation with her brother.
Yeah.
He's just like, remember what I whispered to you? And then it's just like dip into the darkness once more or something. And it's just like, he probably didn't say that. Or maybe he did, but somehow
I think her brother
was utilizing it to...
Right, I think her brother actually, did say that to her, but Sauron has taken that, or Halbrand has taken that and twisted it in just the right way to toy with her, to try and trick her into getting what he wants.
Yeah.
Another thing with the elves as well was, I thought it was really interesting because they had Gil-galad there, the High King, right? And, it's him, Galadriel, Celebrimbor, and Elrond. And they're talking, and they're like, we've got a little bit of mithril, we can turn it into an object, an item to, sustain our elven life, to fix the corruption of the tree, yada, yada, yada. I just found it really interesting, Gil-galad's response to that, where he's saying, if you'd come up with this earlier, this could have worked, but the great trees are all but bleeding their leaves. Like, the leaves are dropping. Our time is short. We don't have time for you to make these objects. And I thought that was really interesting because it really just shows the long game that elves typically play, right? And this was something I did look into as well. When elves work on forging things, like whether it be swords or armor or magic rings, or even when the Silmarils were first crafted, that's not something that they do in a couple weeks or even a couple months or even a year. Some of their forging, the objects that they forge, take decades to forge. Like the elves really just have this long game, this perfection, kind of approach to things where it's like, if we need to take 100 years to do this right, we're going to take 100 years. We've got the time. We're not going anywhere. But then they find themselves in this instance of just not having any time.
Yeah. And I mean, it clearly takes time for them to make these, but like I didn't get.
Yeah.
I think that in this case, these only took like a couple of weeks.
Yeah, because Elrond asked Gil-galad for like 3 months, I think he says,
Okay.
in,
Well,
in,
but
in one of the
also
early
just looking
scenes.
at the time kind of jump in a way where it's like they're completing them.
Hmm.
Um, Elrond is onto them, onto the secret,
Yeah.
who Halbrand is, and we see Halbrand approaching Mordor at this very moment when when they just completed
Yeah.
the rings, and it's like, well, he would have traveled from what is it, Eregion that they're
Yeah.
at. It's
Yeah.
like, so I mean, time's
Yeah, and
passed because he's traveled.
Eregion's for anybody that can like visualize the map of Middle Earth, right? Eregion is on the west of the Misty Mountains, further west than Rivendell in the modern Lord of the Rings. And obviously Mordor is all the way east, you know. So like I'm trying to think what it was. When Gandalf talks about the journey of the Fellowship and Fellowship of the Ring, he comments of heading because they leave Rivendell and they head over towards the Misty Mountains, and then they were gonna go through, I think, the Gap of Rohan. And he talks about like weeks of journey, east, like head due east for 2 or 3 weeks, for the Fellowship, and that's and then their course continues on from there. That doesn't even get them all the way to Mordor. So like, it has to have been like 2 months, probably would be my rough guess for Halbrand traveling from Eregion all the way over to Mordor.
Hmm.
But you don't really get that time jump either. It doesn't tell you 2 months later or 6 weeks later or anything like that.
Right. Um, Galadriel suggests there was so obviously, well, I jumped ahead a little bit. We learn Halbrand's true identity. Um, which makes me kind of wonder, and this was something that I had questioned before. In this, he's blaming her, saying he's just like, well, he's indirectly blaming her. At the
Mm,
point that he's saying this, she hasn't drawn the connection. She hasn't gotten the results back of the whole like lineage thing.
yeah.
But he's basically like, I have you to thank. I wanted to stay in Numenor, and you pulled me with you, and I question his original motives because he did appear to want to just chill in
Yeah.
Numenor. And it's like, I wonder what his kind of game plan was there. Like, was he legit trying to start anew, or was he going to screw with stuff there? Like, I want to know what his plan was, you know?
I think per the show, I think that was genuine. Like per the show, I think he genuinely wanted a new life. Like he didn't want to be the Dark Lord, all that. He wanted something different. Um, I guess just another change from lore to show. In the lore, he has no compulsion to try and turn over a new leaf
Hmm.
in the lore. Like he's just completely evil, doesn't have this like maybe I can be a new man, type of mentality at all. And everything he does within the lore, is to that end to rise again in place of Morgoth, conquer Middle Earth, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I do think per the show, I think it's a genuine wanted to turn over a new leaf and got dragged back into it.
Hmm. The choices that the show made with the close ups of their face while they scream makes me want to cringe. Something about like that whole thing, it was like partially cool, and then it's just like, I don't know. um but the one scene when they are making the rings, like when
Hmm.
they need something, it's rejecting all the metals that they're trying
Right.
to fuse it with, and then they have the realizations like, well, because we're trying to force it. Like,
Hmm.
if we let it kind of come naturally and like kind of coax it into it in a way, like
Yeah.
maybe it would work. And then they decide that it's like, well, how about Elvish gold and silver, which Galadriel has her brother's dagger.
Mm-hmm.
And so they use that. When they did that and it went into this thing, did you notice that when they dropped the mithril in, it resembled the Eye of Sauron?
I did not.
I don't know if it was intentional, but it looked pretty similar. I thought that was pretty cool. Similar. I thought it was kind of cool.
I'll have to go back and look at that scene again. I didn't take notice of that.
Just because, like, it was like kind of a, an amber kind of like color. But then
Yeah.
when they dropped that in, it went sideways to where it was long ways up and down, and it just kind of looked. And I don't know if that was intentional, but it looked like it to me.
I would assume so.
I mean, more than likely.
Like, I feel like that's not something they just put in there just because. I feel like that's probably an intentional thing
probably.
there. But with her dagger too, I thought it was really interesting because they comment that it couldn't just be elven gold and silver. It had to be from Valinor.
Oh, right.
It had to be special elven gold and silver to properly work with the mithril.
Mm-hmm.
Which, during the last episode I made the mention of one of the differences being like the whole show mithril's magical, lore mithril's not. It's just super rare. I think this just kind of ties into more of that, like, show mithril is magical, and you have to convince it. You can't force it. You have to, like you said, you have to coax it into doing what you want it to do. Almost as if it's like a living, breathing thing.
Yeah. Yeah, you really have to condition it to do for it to do what you want it to do. You really have to groom it and
absolutely take control of it and decide what it. Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. In these scenes with the elves as well, we finally get cautious Galadriel. Mainly because she's discovering who Halbrand actually is. But I think it's just kind of funny. It's like, up until this point, she's been so gung-ho. Let's do this, let's do this, let's do this to get to here.
Yeah.
And it's finally here where she's like, wait a second. Maybe I'm being played. Oh, no. Hold on, everybody. Pump the brakes.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of funny. Just in the kind of the 180 that she does here, going from full gung-ho to let's take a step back.
Yeah.
But
I did think it was interesting that she chose not to share that information. Like, obviously it's kind of like, what purpose could it, like, who knows where he's at now? Like,
right.
What would it do? But I don't know.
I mean, I can see why she chose to withhold it. Because she believes that crafting these 3 rings will help save the elves. And she knows how Elrond is. They're good buds, And if Elrond learns, Sauron's true identity, as we see him attempt to do, but it's too late, he's going to try and pump the brakes on this making of the rings out of fear of corruption, And so it's like, from that aspect, I can see where she's coming from. But at the same time, it's like, you've been hunting this guy for how many centuries now? How many decades, potentially centuries now? And now that you know who he truly is, you're just gonna, let's not tell a single soul. Let's just put that on the back burner for now. Definitely an interesting approach by Galadriel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of the rings, though, it was, I thought, kind of, I just wrote down the mentality behind it. Galadriel's the one who suggested there be 3. Because what was it? 1 corrupts, 2 divides, but 3 is pretty balanced.
Yeah. Which, I don't know if they're hinting at something deeper with that. But I've heard something like that in other medias. One of the book series that you and I read in like junior high, the Ranger's Apprentice series.
Oh, yeah.
In one of the early books, there's a comment like that where I think some of the characters are going on like a diplomatic mission, and they need numbers because it's like 1 could be deceit, 2 could be conspiracy, 3 is the number I trust, or something close to that. So it's just like another instance of like a 3 being good type of
Yeah.
belief, I guess.
Hmm.
So I thought that was kind of interesting as well.
I see. I realized that I did not organize my notes, but the thing that's staring at me, I thought was really funny, was when, and this is backtracking, but when Nori was saying goodbye to her family, her dad said, "Well, now you're going out and you're visiting the big wide world, and I haven't taught you a thing." And then they get all like emotional, and she's just like, "That's not true." And she lists these things that he has taught her. And one of them was, "Don't squat near a stream, as you never know when you'll need a drink downstream or a river or something, you know." And I was just like, I just laughed at that because it's like, okay.
Yeah, it's some silly ones. I don't remember the specific things, quote unquote, he taught her.
Yeah.
But yeah, some just like the wording of it was very silly. But it was like when you sit there and think about it for a moment, it's like that's pretty good advice. I don't want to drink my own pee, just because
Well, yeah,
I had
it's
to
like
go back
simple. It's just
that
goofy
way.
things where it's just like, oh, be cautious because you never know, like kind of
Right.
thing. I thought that was funny.
Um, I don't really think. I did have one more thing for the elves. Back to Gil-galad when he's talking to them, to Elrond, Galadriel, and Celebrimbor about like the time they don't have.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was kind of funny that Gil-galad kind of makes a comment along the lines of like, you ask for time, but it's like a fleeting hope, or like a fleeting hope or a meager hope or something like that. And Elrond just like shoots back with like a line that Gil-galad said earlier in the season of like, hope, regardless of how small, is never fleeting or is never like
Mm-hmm.
meaningless. I thought it was just kind of funny. It's like, oh yeah, Dad, but you said this, so can I have the thing?
Yeah.
But gosh dang it, Jacob.
I'm still flashing words on the screen.
I just thought that was funny. I'm purposely looking at my notes right now so I don't see what he's flashing, but I know he's flashing MK. Gosh dang, Jacob. Unless you had anything else with the elves and Eregion.
No, I don't. I actually don't have anything left of this episode. There wasn't really anything, I think, that I noted with Numenor. So
I had just
go for it.
a couple things with Numenor, like maybe 1 or 2 is all. The big thing was when Miriel and Elendil are arriving back in Numenor on their ships. Obviously, Miriel's blind at this point, but the camera slowly pans over and you see all these banners hanging down from
Oh, yeah.
ship masts and different walls and whatnot. And that's Pharazon's like sigil, and so it's like Pharazon has taken over the city in the Queen Regent's absence. Not even the city, the kingdom in her absence.
Was it
effectively.
his sigil or was
Yeah.
it black because the king's dead?
I thought it was his sigil. Let me double check now because I thought that's what it was.
Because Elendil, isn't that his name?
Yeah.
The dude that, yeah, she was like, "What is it?" and stuff, and he was very hesitant to say, and I thought it was because it was like they are in mourning, and it's like, oh damn, your dad's dead, like that sort of thing.
I'm gonna double check. Nope, you are right. I totally took that as something different, but no,
Okay.
it's the mourning of the recently deceased King Tar Palantir. Yeah. You were correct on that one. I like I said, I totally thought that was like Pharazon, laying claim to Numenor. But I can't say too much because that
Okay.
would be spoiler stuff.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but what I will say though is, though those black banners signify the king's death, I think there's also, what's it called? It's like hinting at the fall of Numenor.
Well, and to kind of credit somewhat to your observation of it, that was wrong.
Thanks.
It it he's kind of like shown in this episode, kind of in that sort of situation where he's kind of seeming to like be gunning for power in some way,
Right.
not necessarily directly, but in his attitude, it's kind of like makes you question. And I did have a similar thought where I'm like, he's viewing it because Numenor is wildly different.
Mm-hmm.
And so as it was panning, I'm just like, oh, yikes. And actually I had that thought, but then I saw the black and I'm like, oh, it's probably because, I think he's dead.
Well, and I think it's a prelude to things to come, i.e. the fall of Numenor. Because I've commented on this in previous episodes that we've covered for Rings of Power. Pharazôn's the ruler of Numenor when it falls.
Okay.
Like
Now, how does it fall? I'm trying to think.
If I'm not mistaken, I'll double check, but if I'm not mistaken, it actually is swallowed by the sea.
Oh, so her visions.
I'm pretty sure. I'm gonna double check that though. Numenor's fall was divine punishment by Eru Ilúvatar for its people's pride, led by King Ar-Pharazôn's blasphemous invasion of the Undying Lands, prompted by Sauron's descent, which results in the island sinking beneath the sea and the world's shape changing, with only the faithful escaping to Middle-earth. So yeah, Pharazôn, when he becomes king, tries to go invade heaven, essentially, and God is like, be smited.
Okay.
And wipes the island off of the map. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, Muriel's visions from the Palantir come to pass. Yeah. But so there was those banners, which I have been corrected, and it was for the death of the king. But like I said, I do think it also preludes to Numenor's downfall. And then I'm not going to say the other thought because I can't remember if it's this episode or if it's in season 2. So I'm gonna hold off on that. I don't want to say something that's incorrect, not even in the episode. But that was kind of just the big kind of, I guess that's the big point for Numenor that I had.
Yeah. Okay.
I will say I was kind of disappointed we didn't get the dwarves in this episode.
Yeah.
I always enjoy watching King Durin, Prince Durin, Disa, just the kind of the jibes and jabs they have at one another, and the story of Khazad-dûm. I wish we could have gotten at least a little something in this episode. Unless you have anything else.
I don't.
I'll just go through some of these canon or
the lore differences for sure.
Yeah, lore to film. Excuse me. So a very big thing, and I've commented on this before, especially for this season, and I will say for season 2, it applies as well. The time span is heavily condensed in the show compared to the lore. For example, the forging of the rings in lore happens during the Second Age between 1500 and 1600. The One Ring is forged in the year 1600 of the Second Age. Numenor falls in the year 3319 of the Second Age. So Elendil and Isildur shouldn't even be here yet. And all of the rings are forged over the span of 100 years, not a few months. And then the War of the Last Alliance, which we see at the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring,
Right.
happens in the year 3430 of the Second Age. And so it's like, at least with season 1, this feels like a gear up towards the War of the Last Alliance. But per the canon lore, that ain't happening for another 2,000 years. And so with that, like I said, you have characters like Elendil and Isildur that would not have met Galadriel at this point, right? Miriel would not have met Galadriel at all, period. Things like that. Another big one is with Sauron. And I kind of mentioned this a little bit when we were talking about his reveal as, or Halbrand's reveal as Sauron, and kind of you had asked, kind of what his mentality behind the whole like wanting to start a new life in Numenor was. Like I said, in the lore, Sauron does not have this whole "I'm a broken man, I want to try and be better." Sauron appears as the great deceiver and appears to Celebrimbor as this amazing craftsman that teaches Celebrimbor, whereas in the show it's like he makes this odd comment off to the side and Celebrimbor's like, oh, what if that applies here and I can do this and this and this and this and this, whereas in the lore it's like, hey Celebrimbor, if you do this you're going to get this result. And so it's just kind of like the approach of how Celebrimbor is kind of getting these ideas for the 3 rings for the elves is different. And
it's kind of interesting because, yeah. I mean, I could see it where, well, you've seen season 2. Never mind.
Well, make your comment. Or your thought.
Where like he kind of appears like he is kind of showing up as like this like skilled craftsman, but like almost with this like mentality of like, oh, I don't want to, impose on the greatness of you. Like, so where I could, maybe he's like kind of approaching it in the sense of like he is, well, but the mentality, the way that he presents it and says it to him isn't like this command from authority. It's this. So I guess it is different.
Yeah. Well, Halbrand comes at it more of like I know I'm not this great elven smith and we don't have all these precious materials, but when we're trying to make like an iron sword, we got to do this. I don't know if that works here, but maybe it works here, type of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas in like the lore, it's very much like, if you do this and this, you're going to get your result. And this is how you can do it. I'm going to teach you how to do what you're trying to do. And so it's just like the same goal is achieved. It's just like the approach is different. And with that as well, it goes kind of right into the next big difference when it comes to the rings themselves being forged. Obviously in the show, at the end of season 1, we only have the 3 rings for the elves. But per the lore, there's a bunch of lesser rings that are crafted. Apart from the 9 for men, the 7 for dwarves, 3 for elves. There's a bunch of lesser rings that are pure practice to get the technique down, and forge these greater rings. And obviously that's just not present in season 1. But after those lesser rings, in the lore, the rings for the men and the dwarves are created next, with direct influence from Sauron helping Celebrimbor craft the rings. And then after those are made, then the 3 rings for the elves are forged, but Sauron is not involved, or in this case Halbrand is not involved in that whatsoever. Those are made in secret without his knowledge. And then you have, of course, after that, the 1 ring that Sauron crafts in Mount Doom. We get that, scene in the opening of Fellowship of the Ring. But yeah, the really big thing there is the 3 rings being crafted in secret.
Okay.
Whereas in the show, as we know, dude's right there watching them do it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And then with the 3 rings as well, in the show, the 3 rings are for the elves are crafted as a defensive response to their fate, to the fating of the elves.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the lore, they're crafted as a final secret act to oppose Sauron. So the intent behind the rings are different, which I thought was actually really interesting. And I am curious why the producers decided to take this different approach.
Yeah.
Because to me, at least, that really changes the importance of the rings.
Sorry, I was yawning. Yeah.
Another
That's interesting.
Another one, I think this is just kind of a brief one, is Galadriel from lore to show. In the show, she's, driven by obsession and grief and, trusts Halbrand accidentally helps Sauron. Kind of learns her lessons through failures. Within the lore, at least, though, at this point, she's already, she's one of the wisest elves there is in the books. She distrusts, in this case, Halbrand, immediately upon meeting him in the lore. Because in the lore, there's not the whole, shipwrecked at sea and traveling together and fighting the Southlands.
Mm-hmm.
In the lore, it's Sauron shows up in a Region disguised and is like, I'm going to help you with these rings. And Galadriel's like, that dude's shady. And so just like the difference in Galadriel's character, in lore, she's a wise guardian, wise beyond her years type of thing. Whereas in the book or in the lore, she's that. In the show, she's the warrior hunter, the fighter, the kind of dumb, honestly.
Yeah.
And so it's like in the books, you get Galadriel being like kind of almost mystic with her wisdom and like composed and very, like calm and collected. Whereas obviously in the show, we get this like tragic, flawed, quick to anger type of character. I already kind of commented on Celebrimbor from a little bit. So I'll kind of just skim that just real quick. In the books, he's like this legendary smith, and he is that in the show too. But in the show, they just kind of show him as like having these rushed epiphanies of how to get stuff done, which is just coming from Halbrand making comments over here, And so it's just kind of like the view we get of him just seems different when you look at the two.
Yeah.
There's a let me see. There's 3 more that I'll do because the 4th one just goes into different themes, which I don't really care about, unless you want to hear them. But that's up to you.
No, that's okay.
So another big one is Numenor itself. Within the lore, at this stage, Numenor is at the height of its power. Whereas in the show, we have this early decline, like the early stages of decline happening. And spoiler, kind of, season 2 expands on that decline. Like that decline progresses in season 2, quite rapidly, truthfully, at least in my opinion. Whereas in the lore, it's like over generations and generations and generations. It's a slow burn. Whereas in the show, they're playing it as like a gasoline fire. Truthfully,
kind of like your house.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that thing went up so fast. I've commented on this one as well, so I won't go too much into it, but the whole founding of Mordor and the orcs, the show portrays the orcs as, these twisted, tortured slaves of Morgoth, and Adar wants to save them. Whereas in the books, it's just like, these dudes evil, and they will torture a dog if they find amusement out of it, which they will. They're horrible things. There's no sadness to them whatsoever. And then the last one is the wizards, or the Istari. Like I said with Gandalf, he shows up in the show here during the Second Age. He also shows up, as we've obviously seen, like, not all there mentally. Like, he can't really talk in the beginning, and he's slowly learning words and phrases, and he's got this mystic power, but he doesn't know how to use it, type of thing. Whereas in the books, he shows up in the Third Age. I think it's like early Third Age, mind you, right? But he shows up in the Third Age and he and the other four wizards are sent, yes, to oppose Sauron, but to oppose him subtly. Like, they have restrictions on their magic. Like, in the books, Gandalf's not slamming his arm on the ground and sending wolves flying. Like, that's too much magic happening. Whereas in the show, they just kind of take those liberties and show him to be this big, powerful wizard that doesn't know what he's doing. And the last thing with the wizards as well is, in the show here, they're showing, quote-unquote, presumably Gandalf. It's frickin' Gandalf. Like, there's been enough hints at this point. They show him, as far as we know, arriving first. Like, we don't know of any other wizards. We haven't heard of any other wizards. The closest thing are those three mystics that are following him.
Yeah.
But in the lore, he shows up last. He's the last Istari to arrive. Saruman, Radagast, and the two blue wizards are already there doing their thing, trying to help the good folk of Middle-earth. And then Gandalf arrives. So, those are the differences from show to lore.
So goofy to me, some of them.
I don't.
Well, like, I guess the Fall of Numenor one makes sense. Kind of, if you were to speed that up a little bit, try to condense it into being able to show it on screen, kind of thing. Because, like, realistically, like, the realism of having a cohesive story tie in everything that you want and be within the proper time frame is probably pretty difficult.
Right.
But it's weird to me, like, I guess even the approach, so the approach of, like, Halbrand being different, like, not so much the authority, but the kind of, like, suggestion kind of plays a little more into deceiving, I feel like, because it's kind of like, he's coming across more naturally in some ways than a expert. But, like, I guess I haven't seen a huge, like a list of the differences. So it is, seeing them stack up, it's like, this is kind of odd what they've chosen to do. And some of them make sense, some don't.
The timeline stuff doesn't bother me too much.
Yeah,
like,
and that's what I mean by
Numenor in there,
like,
with, like, Elendil and Isildur, that doesn't really bother me too much. It adds more characters to follow stories and stuff,
Right.
The one that, I think the biggest one that I just don't understand why they decided to do it this way is the Forging of the Rings. Like, changing that order and changing the intent of the three for elves. I'd be curious to know why they decided to switch all that up. Because, like I said when I was mentioning, like, changing the three for elves from a direct opposition to Sauron and the One, or not even the One, just to Sauron before he forges the One, to, we got to do this to save the elves. Like, that just changes the whole intent behind the rings. That changes their purpose. I just wonder why they decided to go that route with it.
I don't know. That is that's one that is goofy to me.
Yeah.
And I mean, where my brain's going is maybe so they could like develop a storyline with Khazad-dûm and the dwarves, because that would
Mm,
tie into that, and that's like, okay, maybe we can explore the friendship of dwarves and elves and like this oddity that there is one, and then
right.
maybe we can expand on that. But there needs to be an event in which that makes sense for them to work together. And like I can see where maybe,
Yeah.
but like it is, I don't know. I'm curious why they made some of the decisions they did.
Well, and I'll say this too, because I don't think season 2's been out long enough. I'm not going to talk about specific details. But season 2 leads up to the fall. Like that's the events 2 and then the fall of Eregion.
Okay.
And I mentioned this because we already know that Eregion does fall. That's already pre-established. You actually see the ruins in Fellowship of the Ring when they're doing like that montage of the Fellowship traveling, you know? And so it's like, you know that event happened. So you know Eregion falls. But you also know that Celebrimbor is involved with the forging of all the rings. Minus the one ring. Sauron does that by himself. And so it's like, season 2 has to include the rings for men and the rings for dwarves. It has to. Otherwise, Eregion can't fall yet. It's just like, that has to happen. And so it's like, would it be really that big of a deal if you just stuck to the original order of the rings being forged and the original intent of the 3 elven rings? And because within the lore of of Middle Earth, the dwarves of Khazad-dûm try to help defend Eregion. Like the dwarves of Khazad-dûm muster and like sally forth from Khazad-dûm to try and drive the orcs back. And so it's like there is a tie-in there for the dwarves and the elves, there being some sort of relationship there. But the producers just kind of decided to go this different route with why that relationship is there, which I don't think they really needed to do.
Well, I don't know.
But with that, favorite part, least favorite part of the episode?
Least favorite part is seeing the mystics.
I have to agree. I think that's my least favorite.
Favorite part was seeing them die.
I think, my least favorite is definitely the mystics. That just, they look so goofy, truthfully. Not even just the one where you can tell she obviously has like contacts in to change her eye color.
Yeah.
They all 3 of them just look goofy to me in one way or the other. My favorite part though is just that shot of Halbrand / Sauron standing there in the mountains overlooking Mordor.
That is a pretty cool
And
scene.
you can just like see the flames and see the destruction kind of behind and around him. It's just like, it is just I think it's just such a cool, epic shot that really just thrusts the evil onto Halbrand / Sauron and really just drives it home for me.
I have to check something super duper quick. And I can pull it up pretty quickly.
While you pull it up, I will do, so I have a thing here that is the final verdict of the lore to show changes, kind of like in a 5-star rating style. Faithfulness to lore, 2 out of 5 stars. Faithfulness to themes, 4 out of 5 stars. Accessibility for new viewers, 5 out of 5 stars. It's easy to get all of the stuff. And then depth for Tolkien purists, 2 out of 5 stars. Tolkien purists not very happy with this show.
Yeah.
Just because they've changed so much.
Okay.
Excuse me.
So what? Sorry. Keep talking.
No, that was just what I
Okay.
was just doing that kind of fill the time while you pulled that up.
So I pulled up the episode because what was kind of going through my brain was, remember how I said it was it looked like the Eye of Sauron.
Yeah.
I'm like, that wasn't the transition into him overlooking Mordor, because that would be a clear, like, oh yeah, that was intentional. So I looked to see where that transition happened, and it was still looking over the rings,
Mm-hmm.
and they started kind of turning, and then it turned into his eye, and then you see
Oh, okay.
Mount Doom in his eye. But I'm seeing it right now, and I don't know if it's so like you've got his pupil
Yeah.
reflecting
I'm
the tip
gonna
of the.
pull up the scene so I can see what you're referring
Yeah,
to
okay, and I'll
specifically.
keep describing it for a
Yeah.
viewer or a listener. And so you have Mount Doom. The tip of it is in his pupil, and something about how the lava erupts. Again, Eye of Sauron, and it's kind of a weird Inception thing, because it's like, oh, there's a depiction of the Eye of Sauron in the Eye of Sauron.
Well, and we even get that in The Hobbit. I think it's the Desolation of Smaug or Battle of Five Armies. When Galadriel and Gandalf, and you have Saruman and Elrond, all arrive at Dol Guldur, and they're fighting the nine wraiths, the ring wraiths. And then it shows like Sauron pop up speaking in dark speech, and it does that like flash of like iris inside of eye, inside of iris, inside of eye, inside of eye, like that quick flashing. It even does that in there too, which could just be another hint at type of thing.
Yeah.
So they're melting the dagger down. I don't want to jump past it. Okay, so they pour that in there. Okay, he drops. Even as it's spinning right now, it kind of like it takes on that Eye of Sauron kind of look. Like as they're spinning the molten metal with the mithril in there.
That's what I was talking about. Yeah, that was the initial one that I was like, that looks like it.
I'm just trying to watch the scene just to see the transition.
Yeah.
Because they melted into the rings, into like the molds for the.
It's like right before he's overlooking. So like if you go all the way to the end and then back up like 20 seconds.
The three rings. It's just kind of spinning with those, and then the three rings turn into like his eye.
Right, and then look at the lava.
Let's see here. Let's turn it sideways so I can see better. There's definitely an Eye of Sauron in there for sure.
Yeah. Well,
on my phone, I have to like really look in to see it.
Yeah.
But if you're on like a TV, it's
there's an Eye of Sauron reflected in the Eye of Sauron. It's really stupid and kind of, but anyway, it's cool. It's a cool scene.
Yeah, I'm just pausing it here too. I'm just showing you like I don't know how well you can see that. Just like
pretty glary. Oh, I can. Yeah. Okay.
Just that overlooking Mordor.
Oh yeah.
With Mount Doom in there.
Yeah,
that's
a real cool
going up. That's such a
landscape.
Cool scene. Mm-hmm. And if you really look, you can like see trails of orcs with their torches and stuff down there as well. Yep. That's such a cool scene, and it really, like, again, to me, it really just drives home. Yeah, this dude's Sauron.
Yeah.
You know, it really just puts that final nail in the coffin for me.
Yeah. What's always cool, and about nearly every episode of this show, and I told you I've had this conversation before, where it's like, it is so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Like crazy high definition.
Yeah.
And like there's scenes like that, there's the scenes in his eye, and there's like all this stuff, and even how the crisp quality of the video when they're like the close-up faces, everything. It's crazy to be wasted on mediocre story, but it's still like it's still like visually really cool.
Well, this is something I wonder as well, though, is because I would consider this a mediocre story as well. But I wonder if that's because it has the Lord of the Rings name on it, or if it's actually just a mediocre story.
That's a good point.
Because I've made this comment to you before.
About Dark Souls.
Yes, with the Dark Souls games. Dark Souls 2, because it's a Dark Souls game, it sucks. It's a bad game because it has the Dark Souls name on it. But if you took the Dark Souls name off of it and it was his own standalone game, I truly believe it would be a really good game. And I wonder if that's the same thing that's happening here with Rings of Power, because it has
food for thought.
Because it has Lord of the Rings on it. It just doesn't hold up to like the original trilogy or even The Hobbit. I do wonder if that's the case.
Maybe.
But
definitely something to think about. But
yeah. That's my final thoughts for the episode.
Yep. I don't have any.
Okay. Well,
we shared our high and low points, and that is season 1 of Rings of Power. So that's cool. We're gonna keep going through season 2.
And
so
if season 3 comes out in time, by the time we're done with season 2, I don't think it will. But if it does,
no. Now that we're actually on a roll with some of this,
yeah. But if season 3 does come out before we finish season 2, we'll go right into it. But there might be a gap between season 2 and season 3 if season 3 takes a while. But we will cover season 3 whenever it comes out, so don't worry about that.
Yeah. But if you are sticking with us weekly, tune in next week for the Clone Wars. We're going to be covering. It'll be season 2, episode 20 through 22, and it's just final. Like, that's the last 3 episodes of season 2. So we're also closing out that season,
concluding a season for the both universes we're covering.
Yeah. So maybe see you over there. Otherwise, in 2 weeks, as we pick up. Well, actually, no, I'm not going to say that because Christmas is coming up. I don't know how we'll do. But sometime coming up, we will do season 2 of Rings of Power, and we'll get going on that.
And just a reminder, every 1,000 downloads is a blooper reel.
Yeah, every 1,000 downloads is a blooper reel, so share it around. Be sure to tune in each episode, contribute to that download count. If you want a live stream of this, we set it as 25 Apple Podcast reviews.
It's been that from the beginning. Still haven't reached the first one. So if you guys want a live stream, if you want a live stream where you can interact with us as we cover content, like he said, share it around, get people to comment yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last little milestone thing. I made a song about Evan a while back for Rings of Power, and I will complete that song if we get 500 Spotify followers. And so
and we're not too far off on that Spotify follower one.
We're closer than but just go ahead and follow there. Yeah. So that's it. Most of you probably already clicked off if you even watched in the beginning. So the more we rattle, the more we lose you. We'll end it now.
Deuces!